Hi everyone. So I just have some Mashiach musings that I wanted to share before Sukkos. So it actually says that in the Beis Hamikdash over Sukkos, when they would do the water libations, there was no greater joy than that. And because there was so much joy, it says there was also a lot of prophecy and Ruach Kodesh. It was such an elated spiritual experience. And the connection between Simcha and prophecy is actually in the Rambam. Rambam explains that one of the criteria for a prophet is that they actually have to be in a state of great joy in order for the Shekhinah to dwell on them and to communicate with them. So this obviously brings us to Mashiach, because there's no greater joy than the water libations in the Beis Hamikdash until Mashiach comes, right? And then that's going to be the greatest joy we've ever known. And on that note, being that Sukkos and Moshiach are so intricately connected, I wanted to share some thoughts about Mashiach as you go into Sukkos. Because I just learned the most incredible thing. First of all, I just want to pause and talk about Yom Kippur for one moment, because, there's one part in the tefillah on Yom Kippur that's very hard to read. You all know what I'm talking about, the 10 martyrs. It's hard to read. It really, it makes your stomach turn and your heart hurt, and it's just very hard. But I focused on the other part of it this time when I was reading it, and I was like, wow, I never really focused on how in a way how mystical this story is. On one hand, it's gruesome, but on the other hand, this very big Russia, this horribly evil man who wants to really bring such, inexplicable, gruesome acts upon the Jewish people. And he brings these tzaddikim into his, palace or wherever he brought them to communicate with them. And he tells them what, he wants to do to them. And what was their response? Give us 3 days. We're going to go talk to God. And then they take the name of God, and Rabbi Yochanan, I believe it was, rises up to the heavenly chamber, and an angel appears to him and tells him, this is actually from God, so you should submit yourself to it. So I'm reading this in Yom Kippur, and I'm like, as painful as the story is, that's really wow, the Jewish people are amazing. My husband was recently interviewed by I think his name is Benny or Benji. I'm sorry for getting his name wrong. Ovtson. He does this podcast called Homesick for Lubavitch. And he was quoting Peretz Chaim, saying the Jewish people really are mystics. We're mystics. And this story really highlights that. Wow. Okay, but anyway, so back to my Mashiach ideas. So not my Mashiach ideas, by the way, just things that I happened to come across in classes that I was listening to, and it's just what I'm excited about right now. It's not necessarily directly connected to Sukkos, except for the fact that Sukkos is connected with Mashiach because it's connected to Simcha. And like I always say, Mashiach and Gula is the purpose of the creation of the world. So at every moment, whatever mitzvah is the main mitzvah of the day is also our gateway into Mashiach and Gula, because it's all connected. Mashiach and Gula are everywhere. It's all over the Torah. It's the reason why we're here. And it's what we're working towards. And the Rebbe said we're on the threshold. So we should always be talking about Mashiach and Gula from many different angles and aspects. And whatever we're excited about in that moment, we should be sharing with each other. So on that note, there's an idea from the Zohar that I was familiar with this idea, but I never really fully put it all together. So it says in the Zohar something very interesting. It says that Mashiach is going to descend body and soul out of Gan Eden and take the Jewish people out of Galus. And this is a very interesting Zohar, because if you go to Rambam, basic halachas about Mashiach is a person who's born to a family, and he has to be from a very specific family. He needs to be from Malchus Beis David, his very specific lineage. So what's this idea that Mashiach is just going to instantly materialize in a physical body and take the Jewish people out of Galus? That's not really a Jewish idea. So it is a Jewish idea that there are certain individuals who sort of come in and out of this world. We know Eliyahu Hanavi is the most famous for that. But what got me thinking about this actually was a class that I was listening to by Rabbi Kraz on Sukkos and Moshiach. And there's a whole discussion in the Talmud about whether or not you can bury someone in shrouds that have shatnez in it. It's actually not just a Talmudic discussion, it's a big discussion in halacha. Because why? Well, we tend to think of death as the end, And there are mourning rituals that we go through because, we don't know how long it's going to be till Sukkos and Moshiach happens, although the Rebbe did tell us it could be any day now, that we could go full into the most miraculous aspects of Geula, which is very exciting to think about. But there's actually a halachic debate about whether or not you could bury someone in shatnez, because death is not forever. People are going to come back to life, and it matters what they're wearing. And so then the whole question becomes, if someone is obligated in mitzvahs after they already passed away, even if they do come back to life. So it's a very interesting conversation, and I have to watch the class again to really put it all together. But there were some tidbits that I took from the class. One is just how exciting is that like death is not an end. And all the Jews that we recently lost on October 7th, they're coming back. And please God, immediately. And anyone we've ever lost, and anyone who's ever known loss, is going to know the greatest joy that they've ever experienced when we're all reunited with our loved ones. And I literally can't wait. So that was one thing I was thinking about. But one of the things that came up in conversation in this class he was giving about Sukkos and Moshiach and all the implications of it is if someone is obligated at mitzvahs or not after they pass away. And where is this conversation really focusing on? Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Why? Well, because he was the compiler of the Mishnah, and it says that he was one of the greatest tzaddikim that ever lived. Very, very, very holy. And he, even after he passed away, would come back. It's in the Talmud. He would come back every Friday and make kiddush for his family. And this is not like an obscure story. This is a story that has a lot of halachic conversation around it. Like, how was he able to do that? Because after you pass away, you're not obligated to mitzvahs. And so what really comes out is that tzaddikim don't ever really pass away. What does that mean? We know that tzaddikim are buried. We go visit their grave sites. What does it mean they don't actually ever pass away fully? So there's a lot of conversation, explanation in Hasidus and Kabbalah about what is the point of death. We know that death was not originally part of the creation of the world. Adam and Chava were meant to live forever. It wasn't until they sinned that death became necessary, because death is a purification process. It refines out any negativity that got attached to the person, the body, their soul in their lifetime. So for a tzaddik, the level of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, there's no sin. There's no purification process. Right? We actually just learned in the Parsha that Moshe Rabbeinu, it says his freshness never faded. And Rashi explains that means that even after death, he didn't actually really ever decay. He didn't have to. So what does this mean? How does the body stay fresh? Because there's a part of the soul that still enlivens it even after death, meaning there's not a real full death. And they don't actually really die. And therefore, they're actually obligated in mitzvahs. It's just that when they're in Gan Eden, that's a place that doesn't obligate the mitzvah. So therefore, they're not obligated when they're in Gan Eden. But when Rabbeinu HaKodesh comes back to his family for Shabbos, when he actually appears in this physical world, in his physical body intact, then he's actually obligated to make kiddush for his family. It's a wild conversation. It's like I said, like I didn't say it, like Rabbi Chaim said, we're mystics, the Jewish people. Life is not what meets the eye, right? So it's a fascinating conversation, right? So now if we bring it back to Mashiach, then we can understand. It's not saying, so Rabbi Chaim Vital, the main disciple of the Arizal, the one who the Arizal gave permission to write down all of his teachings, and who lived for many years after the Arizal. And it actually says that Reb Chaim Vital was a reincarnation of Chizkiyahu HaMelech. He himself was extremely holy Makubal. So he actually brings this Zohar and he asks the question on it. He says, wait a second. This is the question I started with. It's not my question. It was Reb Chaim Vital's question. How could the Zohar say that Mashiach is going to appear, right out of Gan Eden in a body and a soul and take us out of Gullus? That doesn't go along with, the Mashiach. Of course he needs to be born to parents. So Reb Chaim Vital says, no, he's going to be a tzaddik, like Rabbeinu HaKodesh. He doesn't use that comparison, but I'm just embellishing here. But he says he's going to be a tzaddik, born to parents. He's going to be a Jew, a very special Jew. And at a certain point, Hashem is going to take him out of this world, soul and body, into the lower chamber of Gan Eden. And then he's going to come back and take us out of Galus. So I'm just going to leave you with that thought. Oh, Hashem, may it be today, so that we can actually celebrate Sukkos in the Beis HaMikdash with Mashiach and all the Jews that we've ever lost. Together, it will be the greatest joy we've ever known. Good Yom Tov, everyone.